Hi, friends. Welcome to today's episode of We Are Marketing Happy, a healthcare marketing podcast. My name is Jenny Bristow, and I am your host, and I'm also the founder at Hetty and Hop, a full service, fully healthcare marketing agency. I'm very excited today to welcome our very own Haily Bartlett. She is our senior art director here at Hetty and Hop. And we are doing episode 2 of our 2-part series talking about high performing content. So last week we dug in and talked about content through the lens of copywriting. And today, Haily and I are going to be digging in and talking about high performing content through the lens of visuals. So, Haily, kick us off. Talk a little bit about what goes into high performing creative.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things that go into creative even before you start getting into the programs. So you have things like audience research, you have your personas, which come from that audience research, you have what you actually want to accomplish within the campaign, defining those measurable objectives, outlining the desired audience, like things like engagement, clicks, views, what you want them to do. Um, Taking all of those things, looking at what they have, and then creating the creative from that lens of that everything that you had learned before. So it's not just, oh, here's our brand visuals, here's our brand guidelines, our colors, our fonts, our logo. Now let's make something look awesome. It's not going to perform if you just put everything together and slap it out there and put it up on social media. So taking all of those things and really massaging them into the creative and doing all that upfront work first is going to help a lot within the campaign and help a lot within the visuals as a whole. So doing those things from a strategic perspective, obviously, is super important.
Absolutely. Like I think a lot about, as we're building out campaign strategies for clients, it's a really big difference if the campaign is targeted for awareness or conversion, right? The messaging, the creative, the journey that we're going to be sending patients on is going to be massively different based off of the campaign strategy. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the last thing that you want to do is go in with creative that you may think looks awesome. It may be the coolest creative that you could possibly think of, and everyone loves it and whatever. But then once it actually gets out there, if your customer isn't clicking the link or booking the appointment or coming back again, like it's not. It could be the coolest campaign in the world visually, but if it's not doing what you think it's doing, it's a failure ultimately based on the metrics that you are looking for as a company as a whole. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing that we always think about, right, is you're thinking about what stage are they in the journey, that persona researcher comes in also to say, like, how tech savvy are they, right? Like, are they going to complete this online form or do we need to just direct them to a phone number, even if, our client overall is trying to become more focused on driving patient appointments online? Sometimes that just isn't the answer based off of your persona.
yeah, and that's a good point too, is like when you have that upfront stuff already done, and then you have that, and then you have the creative based on those things. If your user journey isn't succinct, like if you are having them click on something that says book now, and then they go to your website and it's just linked to the homepage, or it's just linked to a contact form, that's you're also your end result is maybe, yeah, it got a million clicks and that's wonderful, but you're like, why are my bookings down? Because it's not going to the right place. So much goes into it that's outside the realm of colors and fonts and logos.
Absolutely. Brand guidelines is sort of like a fundamental. Of course, it's going to be on brand guidelines and it's going to look good, but how are we going to make sure that it's actually going to be high performing? So, talk to me a little bit about longevity and thinking about, how when you're developing high performing creative for a campaign, let's say it's an omni-channel campaign, you have lots of different places where we're going to be in market. How do you stay up to date with the shifting requirements, the shifting optimization opportunities for all of these different platforms?
Yeah, so I think doing I do research all the time. Like even if I get a brief that's very specific about like this is the guidelines that we need and these are the specs, things like that. I always go back and double check like what is needed for the campaign, make sure, and not to say that the specs in the brief are wrong because obviously they've purchased it, they're purchasing spots from somewhere, so those are what they need. But is there new clear space regulations? Are there new um stipulations on how many characters can be within something. I know Facebook for a long time had like 50 characters, and now some places say that you don't need that, and some places say that you still need that, and some people say that it's more, and some say that it's less. So really going to like the Meta official page and making sure that those things are we're still compliant within those like parameters that they have set to make the campaign be successful. I think that's super important. That's something that I do every time we do a new campaign just to make sure because things change so quickly.
So yeah, sometimes multiple times a week, specs will change, especially for the digital platforms like Meta. I mean, it just is a constantly shifting. Talk to me about best practices and what's working. I mean, I think one of the interesting things, we have been healthcare exclusive for 5 years now. So we have really our finger on the pulse of what works for creative on different platforms. So how do you take learnings and share those learnings through the lens of creative for our clients?
Yeah, so first of all, it's each client is unique. Like obviously their needs are unique. What they are coming to us for is always unique. What they're trying to accomplish is always unique. Even if it's in healthcare, in the healthcare space, every client always has some need or some measurable accomplishment that they want to achieve with us. And so there are basics, obviously, that every campaign will need, but everyone is unique. The basics, I think, though, to create that nice base for a strong, high campaign is strong, relevant visuals, something that's going to resonate with the audience that you've already identified within the first step of the process. Bold typography, which needs to catch the audience's attention. It has to be tailored to the platform because you're not always going to have all of the space. So like for a Facebook post, you can have all of this text, but you're going to be really heavily reliant on that body copy that you can post along with the images. But if you have a story, you need to basically condense all of those things to a swipe up and then hope that your like messaging is compelling enough to get them to do that action. And then obviously that also goes into messaging hierarchy. So what are they seeing first? How are they reading the ad? What gets them to the CTA? Then, like we talked about earlier, branded graphics. All of your brand guidelines need to be at the forefront. I don't want to look at an ad or a consumer shouldn't look at an ad and say, wait, who is that for? Like, I know we've all seen the Super Bowl commercial where you're like watching it and you're like, wait, what company was that ad? What did I just watch? Like it was cool, but I have no idea where to go or what to do with this information. So that's super important. And then a clear, concise copy direction. Obviously, when design meets with copy, like you guys talked about last week, it needs to be something that's concise and clear and unique to the brand and their audience. It has to be in their tone. It has to be understood by the people they're trying to reach. That also varies by platform. A strong CTA is also super important. Like I said, if they don't know where they're going, it's not going to be successful. And then we also try to do optimize for mobile because that's where everyone is now. Like there's no, I can't really tell you the last time that I just like scrolled through Facebook on my desktop computer. I don't think I've logged into Facebook on desktop in a very long time. So doing things like that combined with everything that you've done in the forefront, which is why that's so important, really helps with those high traffic, higher engaging campaigns.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about how one platform can influence the work you do on other platforms. Like I'm thinking specifically about, for example, doing a carousel on social and then going over to the website. How do you have the rules or the engagement that you see on some platforms influence the work you do on others?
Yeah, so and especially with like brand consistency, like if you are working through a carousel, like obviously looking through the brand guidelines, stuff like that, like they're always going to have, like a lot of brands are going to do campaign specific graphics. So you might have a campaign within a brand that it still is the essence of that brand, but it's going to not completely follow the website. But what we like to do is look at the website where the consumer is going to be directed to make sure that it is a consistent experience within that campaign from social media graphic to landing page. So let's say, I mean, I do social posts, I do website graphics and all of that. But if I wasn't the person who did one or the other, so let's say I didn't create the landing page, but I did create the social graphics, that's the first place I'm going is their landing page to make sure that it is or a consistent experience from the user's perspective so they don't feel lost once they're clicking around and interacting with the campaign.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big misses we see whenever an organization tries to do part of the work in-house and then part of it outsourced to an agency or partner is if they're not really working in lockstep, then you can see a disjointed experience. So that's just a good reminder for all of our in-house folks. If you are doing part of it in-house, still make sure that you operate as one team to make sure that user journey is as streamlined as possible. So talk to me about, I want to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, AI. I'd love to hear your thoughts talking about how you see AI potentially shaping creative creation and optimization, both on the written and the visual perspective, short term and long term.
Yeah, so I think I definitely see AI as a tool that can be used to make your designs, like to enhance designs, to help with um, creating less, like helping you create something within less amount of time. So, like for example, you have Adobe Photoshop, and it used to be if you wanted to, let's say you had a campaign or a billboard and it's this long, but the image that you're using for your campaign is a very vertical image and not a lot of horizontal space. What you can do now, what you had used to have to do is do like a content aware fill. That always didn't work, or you'd have to do a clone stamp tool to kind of make things appear the way that you wanted them to, and that could take a long time. Now it's done within a matter of seconds, and you have options to choose from. So using that and being able to expand an image that has been my number one use for AI is image expansion and content deletion. So like, let's say you have an image for a sober house for a client who has running that, but the image they want to use has a bottle in it, and you're like, okay, well, that could or could not be alcohol, so let's remove that. It takes me 2 seconds to highlight it and let's say remove, and then it removes it out of it. So that's been super helpful in terms of like content creation for our clients, for ads and stuff, because Adobe puts their entire library, all their stock photos in that to be learned off of as a tool for their other programs. So that's my main use.
Yeah, that's a great example of a use. And I'm really excited to see it. There's a couple of different tools on the market that are testing out the ability to allow folks to do ad iterations. So if you need ads resized, it can do some of that bulk work for you. Humans still have to review and tweak things, but there's lots of different approaches folks are trying to take AI to be able to be additive to the overall creative process. So it's going to be fun over the next couple of years to watch. I think the biggest lookout for folks listening to the podcast is humans still need to be involved with creative. I think there are some people that are hoping AI can really take over a bulk of that lift, and we still just aren't seeing it anywhere near being able to do that. It may develop something that's pretty, but it isn't speaking to the right target audience. It doesn't have the journey in mind. There's always something missing. So it definitely can be additive, but I would just caution listeners as you're thinking about integrating AI into your creative workflows, always think about how it can improve the efficiency or the timeline or whatnot of humans versus replacing humans.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And one of the biggest parts of like creating, like I went to school first to be an art teacher because I love helping people learn how to create and helping people like with the creative process. I love the creative process and like everything that goes into design. So, if like I would never go in and just say, here's a thing that AI made because that's the funnest part of creating is like doing the creation. But if it can help me expand an image so I don't have to look for a whole another 4 hours to find a new image that works with what I'm doing, by all means, do that for me.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. Well, Haily, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope these two podcast episodes gave our listeners some fresh things to think about as you're working on developing creative and ensuring that it is as high performing as possible. Please take a moment and like and share this podcast, subscribe. We drop new episodes every Friday, so we would love to have you as a subscriber, so we'll automatically be added to your listen list. And on that, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will see you next week on a new episode of We Are Marketing Happy. Cheers.